Greetings and welcome to another lecture in Introductory Psychology. This one involves suggestions as to how we can cope with our stress in healthy ways. I mean, there are lots of ways to cope that aren't very healthy, like aggression and eating too much and drinking alcohol to excess and that sort of thing. So these are sort of other ways to cope that are healthier and that actually might be good for you in the long run. The first is to try to stay as healthy as possible. I realize this might be difficult. If you haven't watched the General Adaptation Syndrome video, you might want to go do that before we go on with this. Because, of course, one of the side effects of stress is that the immune system gets trashed. But what people should do when they're stressed is they should at least try. Get vaccines for things like influenza, because that tends to hit right about when our immune system is at a low. Wash hands a lot. Eat healthy. Get as much sleep as possible, which may be difficult, but you really need to do it. Because the healthier you are, the less you tear yourself down, the longer you could stay at that resistance stage without crashing into exhaustion. And sleep and eating well and all of that can definitely help you stay there. Keeping your energy up is good as well. One really good thing to do when you're stressed is exercise. And this doesn't have to be like running marathons or lifting huge numbers of weights or whatever. Take a walk. You may have noticed sometimes, and if you haven't, you should try this, that when you're really stressed out and you just can't think straight, go take a walk for like 10 minutes. Just a 5, 10, 15-minute walk. And you very often come back and you feel a lot better. And that might be because, remember what stress is. Stress is the fight or flight response. And so that might be because when you're walking, your body is saying on some level, yay, we're running away, we're dealing with the stressor, we're stopping it, we're doing something, this is fantastic. But whether or not that's actually true, we have a lot of evidence that exercise can definitely make people feel better. And again, take a walk, especially if it's a nice day outside and the sun is out. Go take a walk. Exercise seems to work as well in boosting mood when somebody has mild to moderate depression as antidepressants do. Okay? So, for some people anyway, getting exercise works as well as Prozac or Zoloft. And it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot better for you. So when the stress seems to get really, really bad, just go take a little walk. Doesn't have to be huge. Little, like I said, 5, 10, 15-minute walk can do wonders. Other ways to reduce your level of resistance include things like relaxation and feedback. Now, the relaxation doesn't have to be, trained relaxation. It doesn't have to be something like meditation or transcendental meditation. It doesn't have to be those things. It can be, but it can also be just relaxation. Just close your eyes and clear your mind and try not to think of anything. Or just look out the window, and just try not to think of anything. What that will do is, since you're not thinking about the stressor, it's a form of emotion-focused coping, but it also will allow your body to then lower that level of resistance a bit because your body doesn't think it's being attacked right this second. And anytime you can lower that level of resistance is good, and relaxation can allow you to do it, whether it's prayer or what all else. Biofeedback can also help. There are ways to monitor your body's level of resistance, your body's level of the fight or flight response, and it is possible to learn to relax in such a way as to reduce that level. Biofeedback is simply when, through some sort of mechanism, you are given feedback as to where your body is in terms of something like your level of resistance. The machines that I've seen measured galvanic skin response, which is how much a person is sweating. You're always sweating, constantly sweating. It's why your skin remains moist. Even in the desert, people are sweating. It's why they get dehydrated. And the thing is, though, when you're stressed, you sweat more. And what these machines would do is measure the amount that you are stressing. And so therefore, if you reduce the amount of stress, you reduce the amount of moisture, and at least in the biofeedback machine that I own, you reduce in pitch the tone that you're listening to that measures. You make the tone go down, it means that you're relaxing, it means your level of resistance is going down, it means that you're stressing less, it means you're sweating less. And that sort of thing can also help to bring that level of resistance down. Thinking positively. There's a lot of evidence that optimists live longer and are happier than pessimists do. Optimists tend to look on the bright side. They're always assuming things will work out well. And they're also working to make sure that it does. Pessimists always assume that everything is the worst and everything will be bad. Pessimists aren't particularly happy, and they aren't particularly healthy. Granted, we have a little bit of a chicken and egg problem here. Is someone a pessimist and then they become unhealthy, or does some become unhealthy because they're a pessimist? Or is it that they're unhealthy and that makes them a pessimist? And it can be difficult sometimes to figure out what's going on. But definitely it's better to not sort of dwell on the negative, to not brood over what's gone wrong, to not beat up yourself about things that you did, particularly in the past, that you can't do anything about now. And rather try to look at the positive, try to look at the bright side, try to think about things in a brighter manner. Now, locus of control is where we believe that control of our behavior, our life, is located. Now, we can either have an external locus of control, which generally means that we believe that we have no control at all over our lives, that our lives are controlled by fate, they're controlled by destiny, they're controlled by chance. Or we can have an internal locus of control, where we can believe that we do have some control over our lives. Now, I gotta tell you, nobody has complete control over their life. Sometimes things just happen that we have no control over, that we can't do anything about. But there are definitely things that we can control. And if you believe that by changing those things you can control, you can make your life better, you're going to be happier, you're going to be healthier, you're going to be less stressed. So try not to think that there's nothing you could do, that everything is already decided, that no matter what you do, nothing will ever change. That leads you into something called learned helplessness. And learned helplessness is really highly correlated with depression and with stress. So try to stay away from that. Social skills. This is overlapping a bit with the factors that influence severity of stress. I understand that. But yes, it helps to have someone to talk with. It helps to have some place to vent your problems so that they don't seem as bad anymore. And there is evidence, for instance, there's some evidence that married people, both male and female, live longer than single people do. Although the studies I've seen actually are a bit more complicated than that. The studies I've seen actually say that married people who stay married and single people who don't get married are happier than people who marry and divorce or break up and marry and so forth. And that might be because divorce and such are very stressful. And when you're divorcing someone, you can't talk to them. You may have friends you can't talk to because they're his friends or her friends too, and you can't talk to them and everything. But it really does help to have someone to talk to. Lastly, it helps to have material resources, which generally boils down to money. And I suspect that's in part because a lot of people stress over money. You don't have money, you're going to be stressed. And so that makes perfect sense. But it also could be, for instance, that if you do have a lot of money, then you can join a gym, or you can get massages, or you could get a biofeedback monitor, have someone teach you how to relax. Or you could go to a therapist and learn to think positively and deal with your locus of control. And therefore you have someone to talk to social. Yeah, I really don't have any suggestions on how to make more money. I'm afraid you're on your own with that one. But definitely the prior suggestions before that can help and make the stress seem, or in some cases actually be, not quite so bad.